everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Tiranno, and today I'm going to be doing a Week 17 update on my 365-day challenge. Yeah, Week 17, guys, it is just moving along. I've kind of gotten my way into the challenge now where it's really not like a second thought where I have to watch a movie. It's just kind of nature now. Everything's going smooth. Well, it's been going pretty smooth. You know, I can't say I've had many bumps in the road. This week was a lot of fun, though, and I believe I'm going to extend it one more week. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you obviously have to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, which is right here at Jacob Tiranno, where I tweet my daily reviews of the movies that I watch, and I kind of get more in depth about everything that I'm doing each day. Last week I watched Hush from director Mike Flanagan, and it kind of inspired me to want to do a modern horror week. I feel that for some reason modern horror has just kind of slipped through my fingers, and I feel like I've missed so much. And now because there's so many releases on Netflix and VOD, that those are even more horror films that I may have missed, right? Like there are tons of releases on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, but there's something about the horror genre that they pump out so many. And I was like, you know what, I really need to take the time and kind of catch up on these. So I did. And I'm actually going to be extending it for 2 weeks. So this is week 1 of modern horror, and I'm going to be diving right back into it this week, starting today, because it was just so much fun. It was fun to watch these horror movies that I missed out on and see what, I've been missing. So let's hop back to last Monday, day 113, where I watched another film from Mike Flanagan, the one that was more popular, and that was Oculus. And Oculus is a movie that does, what great horror films done. I've talked about it before on this YouTube channel. Excuse me, my allergies are really bad. They give you this feeling of impending dread and anxiety, but it doesn't use like gore or cheap scares. I mean, I think the movie really kind of tells an intriguing story and does it with style, and what really drives it is the solid characters. And I think that one of the characters, played by Karen Gillian, was phenomenal. I don't know if it's Gillian or Jillian, but she was so good. She's like really the heartbeat of the movie, and what to me stood out for this movie, like I thought the story was interesting. It's the one about the mirror. I don't know if you're familiar, from WWE Studios. Look at that. It was just that how invested I was in these characters, right? Like it's about this brother and a sister who are now on a mission, and there's a little bit more backstory. But as I've always said, go into a movie blind. It's the best way to do it, and I went into this blind pretty much. But what was so interesting about it was like how invested I was in their success or failure. Like I wanted them to succeed and to beat this omen, this thing that's been kind of destroying their life for years, or destroyed their life, and now they're kind of at a point where they have to face it again. And I really, really wanted them to succeed, and I really wanted them to get to the ending. If they succeeded or not, I'm not going to say. You'll have to watch it. But it was a movie that just was really wanted to see these characters prevail, and I think that's a real, really a test to my investment in the movie. So go check that. That's also on Netflix, and I just think it was told in such a compelling style. We have a lot of films that do flashbacks and go, and tells things, back and forth, but it blurs the lines between reality and illusion so well. And, we kind of go flashback, like we have our characters of today dealing with our characters of yesterday and them kind of intertwining. And it's just I think it was a really great, fun horror movie. I don't think it's a movie that'll necessarily really scare you, but it is one that I really enjoyed. I had a lot of fun. Okay, so this week I pretty much tackled the VHS series. I've been wanting to watch these movies for some reason. I don't know why. So day 114, I continued the week of modern horror by watching the first VHS film. Now, it left me really conflicted. This was a movie that I saw so much potential in, but not all of it was reached, right? There were some really effective and creepy segments, especially the Skype conversation. And there's this really great segment with a couple traveling. But overall, I didn't feel the movie worked completely. I feel that it kind of left me unsatisfied, and I just really wanted the whole thing as a whole to work, right? Like, I think that what's great about VHS is that they go into a very supernatural place, right? Like the first segment, goes into a very odd place. It's something that you wouldn't normally. Well, okay. The very ending or the reveal of it goes into a place where you probably wouldn't get it because it's a bit out there. It's not common, right? Like we have these, we have the partying and the killing and all this stuff, but what this creature ends up being is just like, wow, I don't think that would work as a horror film because I don't think people buy into that as easily as they do ghosts or killers or demons or things like that. And though it's debatable exactly what that thing was, I just think it was a really interesting way to go. However, I don't think the overall segment was very effective. However, that Skype effect segment, which is just very out there and very different, I thought was very effective. And then this couple of, as much as I like the Skype, it was really creepy too. And the couple traveling, I thought, was also really creepy and scary and, really kind of took it for a whirl. And it was a little bit like, oh, wow, it was a really clever little short. But, I've always said how much I love short films. And VHS are kind of like segments of short films, right? Like they're short little horror films. And I think that they explore some really strange things. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but I think it deserved the credit for trying. It's not a bad movie. Some people kind of really hate on the series. And I don't think it's bad. I think it's decent. I think it's worth watching. And I just don't think it all comes together. And I think that's kind of the downfall of it. So on day 15, I actually watched 2 new films. I watched Keanu, which I reviewed with my good friend Mr. James. If you click that white eye up here, a bunch of links will drop down. You'll be able to find that review. But I was so kind of conflicted and had these feelings about VHS. I immediately wanted to jump into VHS 2. And like the first, it's a sporadic collection of segments with some better than the others. However, overall, I think the film works more than the first. Like the first movie, we kind of around this tale where these group of punk kids are trying to steal this tape. And it's kind of unclear of what's going on and who's got these characters, where in the sequel, I think what works is that we have these 2 characters, but we know what they're doing, we know what their job is, we know what they're looking at, and we know who they are a little bit better, and it makes the whole overall story about what they're watching work together. I think it's perfect for horror fans, right? Like I think it'll satisfy that horror craving. It's good fun. I'm just not sure how much of the material is memorable. I think it goes really deep down the rabbit hole with its standout segment, Safe Haven. And it's wild and gory and seriously disturbing, but it's also just kind of out there and unique. I had a lot of fun in that segment, as well as the zombie segment. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a very clever original zombie segment shot primarily with a GoPro, and I think that's very kind of cool. But it's these segments become more fun on a creative level than they do on a scary level. But the one that should have scared me was the final bit, was the alien bit, and alien slumber party or something of that nature. But it let me down because it felt so rushed and unmethodical. Like that was definitely one of the biggest letdowns. I think was like I was really into VHS 2, and then that last segment was just like feels so thrown together, and and the aliens are so creepy. These creatures are so like, oh Jesus, and perfect enough to scare me. Everything, it's very easy to scare me, but aliens like of that nature especially, like oh my god, like that'd be terrifying. But it's kind of wasted on the lack of story. However, again, I think it's what brings all these segments together, which makes VHS 2 probably the best film. No, the best film in the series. Moving on, I watched not so much that much of a well, it's still modern. It was in 2001 actually, and that was my ever-long journey to finish the Children of the Corn franchise. I've been working on this since like mid last year. If you've been following my YouTube video, you'll actually see my Throwback Thursday, The Children of the Corn. Whenever that was, I've been trying to finish all 8 or 9 of these movies to this point. This was number 7, Children of the Corn Revelation, and it is by far the worst film in the series. It was awful. I mean, this was one of the most frustrating, annoying movies that I've ever seen. And the whole series hasn't been very good. Like, even the first Children of the Corn is okay, but it's not amazing. And as I've gone through, they're all kind of like, they're really B films. Like, there's nothing too impressive, nothing too memorable. But this one was by far the biggest mess. it just doesn't work. Characters aren't convincing. They're not likable. They're making choices that are stupid. They're like, half of these characters are living in a condemned building where electricity and water and all this still works. Like, just characters, like, this girl is trying to find her grandmother who's missing, so she lives in her condemned building where people are getting killed, and she decides to go back there and wait. I mean, just really stupid stuff where you're just like, come on. Like, I couldn't even get into it. And no, it's not because it's a lower budget film or it's a 7th sequel. I don't care about that stuff. As long as you could kind of get me in the story, I'm all right with it. Like the other Children of the Corns, they're adopting these kids from this tragic thing. Like, okay, I can buy it, Like, yeah, there are red flags and things you don't do. Of course, in every horror movie, like, oh, I wouldn't go that way. I wouldn't run up the stairs. But this was just something where you're like, oh my God, why are these people so dumb? Like, they were just doing it for the sake of getting to the next scene. And I absolutely hate that. Hated it. The next day, I watched a film on the recommendation of my buddy Trevor from Movies and Candy. If you aren't familiar with Movies and Candy and you are local to Las Vegas, guys, check it out. They are amazing. They are a mom and pop movie store. Excuse me. I have been a patron for a long time. Actually, probably since they opened. I've been good friends with the family there, Katie, Trevor, and their 2 wonderful children. It's been a lot. I've had a great relationship with them, and it's been a while since I went back. And I told Trevor what I was doing, and Trevor is one of the most coolest guys you'll ever meet. I mean, he's a really big movie fan, and you hear that, but he's a lover of movies that you've never heard of, right? Like, he's a fan of movies that you have probably never seen. And I told him what I was doing, and I was like, man, I got to do a Trevor week because he can recommend me these films that I've never heard of, never seen, never even thought about watching, and he'll recommend them. So he gave me one. He gave me one horror film, but I'm saving the really, really like out there Trevor stuff for a whole week, maybe 2 down the line. But if you want to check out Movies and Candy, it's a great store. It has its own theater. You can rent it out. You can watch, birthday parties and stuff. Me and my girlfriend have rented out the theater before and enjoyed the wonderful private theater. It's really, really nice. And you have all these movies. I mean, he turned his collection into a big, rental store, but it's a great place to meet movie fans and just talk about movies. And they have a lot of candy. And that's going to be at 10895 Southeastern Avenue and Henderson, Nevada 89052. I have all the information you need down here in the description box below. Make sure to go check it out. It is amazing. Tell them Chasing Cinema sent you. But let's hop into the movie, which is Found. Easily one of the most shocking and horrific films I've seen during this week, and I don't think that's a surprise because Trevor recommended it, and as I told you guys, Trevor really knows how to send you out there, and this movie did exactly that. It's gory, it's graphic, and it pulls no punches. It's clever, but yet very disturbing, and it's not for the faint of heart. If blood and excessive gore and disturbing things are not your deal, this isn't the movie for you. So just keep moving along. Found explores this really fascinating idea about a young boy and his brother. And the thing is, I really want you to see this movie, and I don't want to tell you what it's about, but I kind of do because it really kind of builds. But their relationship is the heartbeat of this film. And here, I'll put it this way. This movie is about a young boy finding his brother's, the skeletons in his brother's closet. And I'll leave it at that. Those who've seen the movie will understand that better than those who haven't. But if you haven't, it makes sense, right? But their relationship is really kind of this heartbeat of this movie, and it's really interesting, and it's really fascinating to watch. And I think during the movie, it does try to take on these bigger and more intense themes that kind of are too big for them to handle, and they kind of get forgotten or never really communicated effectively. But I think that this movie deserves such immense credit for its style and the fact that it's such an impressive, scary movie, and it's rumored to be made on the budget of about $8,000. At least that's what I believe the IMDb page said, which is really impressive. Yeah, it looks like a lower budget film. The acting isn't always phenomenal, but I mean, for $8,000, I mean, this is a solid film, and a solid film. If the blood and gory, graphic horror films are yours, this is the movie you need to see. It's called Found, 2012. And you really need to check out Movies and Candy in the description box because Trevor is the guy to talk to. Moving on, day 118, a 365-day challenge. I ignored everyone I possibly could. and watched the final VHS film, VHS Viral. And that was by far the worst film I've encountered this week. It's just a huge mess, start to finish. And people are going to say, well, didn't you just say you hated Children of the Corn Revelation? I did hate Children of the Corn Revelation, but let me tell you the difference. VHS Viral tries to impede this theme, that it's bigger, it has this big message to us, and it's trying to speak and teach us something, and that's what bugs me. Like, Children of the Corn 7 was like, we're Children of the Corn 7, just deal with it. Just deal with what we're going to do. But this movie's like, oh, I'm going to tell you this creepy story, but I have a message about you guys and how people want to be viral and people do anything to be famous and the internet and these themes. And it's just like, oh gosh, come on guys, really? Like, that's where you want to go. And it doesn't even make sense. It really doesn't have one redeeming segment. I mean, there's one segment where these skateboarders are fighting these skeletons, which is kind of cool. But even that is like, ugh. Like, the reactions during the fighting and how they're talking, it's just like, oh my god, it was dreadful and completely forgettable. They've kind of just forget that it's a found footage film sometimes. Like, there's just cameras there that you're just like, oh, wait a minute, who's filming this? Or what is this being filmed on? There's like, and then like they try to make it more VHS-y with all this like, all these effects to make it like, like a how film tracks and like all the stuff in front. And it's just like, come on, you guys are overdoing it so much that it feels like you're sitting on a computer doing this to make me feel like it just feels so overdone. It's just such a letdown. The first film was decent, it had so much potential, and the sequel even offered more potential and it was more excited, but this one easily killed the series. Very disappointing. And last day 119, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite movies. Actually, my favorite movie of this week. And probably one of my favorite movies I've seen in a long time. Really, really great horror film called The House of the Devil. The recommendation of my good friend Josh Bell, who's been on this YouTube channel and podcast many a time. House of the Devil is a beautifully crafted film from writer, director, editor Ty West. It's skillful and stylish and it's thrilling. I mean, it's really just a breath of fresh air because it's escaping today's horror tropes of being like everything else. And instead, it masterfully uses suspense like a great Hitchcock movie. Now, I'm not comparing Ty West to Hitchcock. I'm not saying this movie's as good as a Hitchcock movie. But this is a this is a filmmaker who was a kid and watched Hitchcock and watched movies and realized that suspense and dread and anticipation is where the key to a great horror film is. And it's also so well designed. What's great about this movie is it was made 2009, I believe, but when you look at it, it looks like it was made in the 70s. It really kind of replicates 70s and 80s horror films, but to me, it especially looked very 70s. You have the credits in the beginning that look, I mean, the whole movie looks kind of grainy. We have these opening credits, and then we have a freeze frame at the end, like at the end of the opening credits. It's just like it's such a beautiful tribute and love letter to the older horror classics. Like, it felt like I was like someone was like, here, watch this movie from the 70s. If someone would have said that to me, chances are I probably would have believed it. I think some of the effects are a little bit telling, but it's just like, oh my god, like this movie just looks like it was done by a person who loves good horror movies. And it's a nod to scary movies of the past. It has such a unique feel and style. I mean, the whole movie just makes you wait and makes you wait and makes you wait. And that's where the great horror and that's where the effective horror comes in, is the waiting and the anticipation. And this movie really makes you wait. So if you're a guy who just likes pop-out scares from beginning to end, this probably is the horror movie for you. But if you love horror movies and you respect the classics, then you will love this movie because it is by far probably the best horror film made one of the best horror films made in the last 10, 20 years. I mean, I really love this movie. Very different than The Babadook, another recent horror film that I absolutely loved. But so good, so good. Check out The House of the Devil. It's on Hulu. I couldn't recommend it enough. I mean, it was really great. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Follow me, Jacob Tiranno, Instagram and Twitter, as I venture into week 2 of modern horror films because I've had so much fun this week. As always, you could read all of my reviews of Keanu and all the other new films coming out, as well as Captain America Civil War this week at chasingcinema.com. Click that white eye above here. A bunch of links drop down. You'll get a lot more information. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button so you never miss any of them, and slap a like on it. If you have any questions about the movies I saw, type it in the comment sections below. My name is Jacob Tiranno, and please continue chasing cinema.